up, everybody? Welcome to Playing Dead, IGN's somewhat regular Walking Dead show where we spoil everything about Season 2. If you're not caught up and you didn't play the finale, you didn't play Episode 5, now is your chance to turn it off. Because I'm Greg, this is Sean, that's Dennis, and that's Mitch, and now we're going to talk about the finale. So you've had your chance, the whole season's about to get ruined. I killed Kenny.
Oh man.
But I didn't even kill Kenny like the normal way. Like I've talked to you guys before, Mitch and Av. You've heard this sob story a million times. You watch Playing Dead, you know it. I'm a Kenny boy. I loved Kenny in season 1.
Ride or die.
Ride or die is what
Mostly
I've been saying
die.
with Kenny. Yeah, a lot of people die around us. But this time around, like when Jane walks in at the end and she's like, "Just trust me, you know, don't whatever happens." I'm like, "Oh, you've hidden the baby. You are a jerk. Why are you doing this? You were somewhat normal. I mean, damaged like all of us, but it seemed like you were going to be all right." And then they started getting into it, rolling around, and I'm like, well, Jane sucks. I now know Jane sucks as much as Kenny sucks. I just looked away, let him ice her, and then he starts talking about saving the baby. And all. This is what I wanted to compliment you guys on, is the fact that the options jump up. And it didn't dawn on me until this moment, actually after the fact, I immediately select kill Kenny without reading any of the other options. And what's really f***ed up, Mitch, is that is only the second time in The Walking Dead I've ever picked an option without meticulously going through everyone. And the first time I ever did it was hug Kenny.
Yep.
So in the same season, hug Kenny, kill Kenny, bam.
Awesome. So why? I mean, you get two chances to kill Kenny. You can shoot him when you pick up the gun.
Right.
And Jane is gonna die, or you can do it after. Why did you wait till the second time?
I mean,
that's a good question.
I mean, this is another thing that I think you... Yeah, thanks, Mitch. You host this show from now on. Next season of Playing Dead is all you. This is, for me, I've wanted Clem to be alone since episode 1. I wanted to get away from the group as soon as I got there. Not because they were bad people. I just
Trust
thought
nobody.
I didn't think they had their shit together. I just thought these people are going to come apart. And then Jane pops up, she's telling you all that stuff. And then in the same side of that coin, right, Jane starts telling you Kenny's coming unglued too. And I put it out of my head for as long as I could. When he's like punching the truck and screaming at the truck, I'm like, God damn it, he really is done. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, well, let's get through this. And I'm like, well, Jane is now on the list too. I don't want to be with her for sure, so this takes care of that. And I was like, I can, if I need to, I'm going to be able to build something with Kenny, talk to Kenny, try to explain. And then when it came up as kill, I'm like, we've gone down this road. In this episode, I've tried to explain to you, man, like, you need to pull it together. You are coming off. And no, I pulled up the gun, and he's just like, do it. And I was like, oh, this is what you wanted, too. Like,
You are ice cold.
that's my Clementine. Hashtag my Clementine.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Greg's
That's really good.
Well, it's crazy. That's the fun thing about our games, because like I feel like everyone in the office has their own version of that,
Yeah.
where they almost think like this is the ending they wanted.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, I think, for us, because when we're kind of looking at all the possibilities, like we all have our own favorites. And we're
Sure.
like, oh, everyone's going to do this. Like 100% of people on this.
Yeah.
But then it never is, and it's fun to hear then stories of people saying like, man, I was like so on board with that decision. And
Yeah.
like, I got this ending and like that. So it's like the alone ending seems like it worked great for you.
And that's the thing is
That's
like
awesome.
I had a chance to go back and play the other ones, right? And like the alone, I've watched Jane die, I've killed Kenny, and now I'm out on my own is definitely like the most depressing, right? But again, like I don't know how you subconsciously did this. It got to what I wanted from episode 1. I wanted her to be alone, and now I've got what I wish, and it's like, man, this is rough.
She's not technically alone though. That's
Yeah, I know.
She's got-
that was the one thing. If I want to throw anything, my one criticism, my one big knock on the game was I wanted it would have been ballsy, but I wanted the option to walk up and be like, take baby, leave baby, because I would have left baby.
See, that's what I was waiting for too. And I was waiting, like, why wasn't there ever an option to just be like, I don't care about this baby. Like, this thing it's a burden. It will ruin my life. It will guaranteed get me killed. Why didn't you guys ever give the option to just like say no? I don't want to take a baby.
We talked about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of
there's-
discussion around that actual
for sure.
point, but like what we ended up coming to was that Clementine isn't really in that place at this point still. Like even after all that stuff, I think we just kind of landed on the fact that she's just still not quite there.
Right.
So who knows?
Got to leave some room for season 3, right?
yeah. Well, again, we're spoiling everything here. How season 3? What do you you've
Episode
gotten
1 will start in 5 different places.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like as a developer, right? Like I always, when I talk to like the Sucker Punch guys about when they ended Infamous 1, I remember beating Infamous 1, good and evil, and being like, well, Infamous 2 won't be Cole. It's too hard. You're not going to make. You're not going to spend all this time making a game start in one place and then do the same thing again, knowing only 50% of players are ever going to see that. Like, how was that a really tough decision for you guys to end season 2 in such a shattered way?
Yeah. It's funny. I think it was tough in thinking about the repercussions going forward, but it felt right for the end of the season. And so, I mean, we always have that thing where, you're pitching stuff constantly and trying to figure out what feels best, and reality is just sort of a thing that doesn't exist. And so, we'll obviously have to deal with that, but at the end of the day, like, we felt that giving those options to the player were the most important thing we had to accomplish at the end of the season. So, we have, obviously there's ideas going forward of how we're going to pull all this stuff off.
Right.
But yeah, it seemed like that was the bigger win, to do that and take the risk.
It's much more about, like, the now.
Right.
Because, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the future? Let's just
Well,
make
you're
sure
supposed
that...
to.
Well, yeah. If you don't know what I mean, like, the world could end tomorrow,
Sure.
and this is what people remember, right? So we got to make sure that's good.
I gotcha.
And so that's the thing that we're really aiming at.
Yeah, and I think something your writers accomplished that was really, really amazing is there's a lot of, implied storytelling, and there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't have a bow tied on it, so there's nothing neat and tidy about Krista. You get separated, you think the whole season you're going to finally meet up with Krista, and if you get to Wellington and you ask, is someone named Krista in there? You're expecting for her to go, yeah, sweetie, she's right here, and she's been here waiting for you. And it's like, no, like...
She found her baby, too.
Exactly. Right? There are all these plot threads that just kind of get cut off, and you just move on, because in a situation like that, you do, like, sometimes you just lose people. Sometimes it happens as suddenly as, oh shit, the ice broke, and that dude is gone.
Wow, yeah.
Sorry. Sometimes you get separated and you just never see people again.
Yeah, and that's sort of an important thing, I think, going forward, like, especially with Walking Dead, where if you're going to keep up the realism of any moment, you need to kind of have those threads that just don't ever tie up nicely, because life isn't like that, right? Like, it just never is. So.
Well, I remember at the end of season 1 when there's the two silhouettes on the hill. Now, granted, we've never had it spelled out for us that was Omid and Krista, but I remember arguing like, no, it's not Omid and Krista, because that's not what this is. I mean, things don't tie up, and then even when it turns out that it is, or at least that's how we got back to Omid and Krista, like, then, Omid dies. We never see Molly again. I thought for sure, like, I knew Kenny wasn't dead, and I was expecting him to show up, so I was like, yeah, I finally got one of my stupid predictions right. But I expected Molly to pop up too at times, and all these different things, so, yeah. How are you going to start season 3? I don't know.
Yeah, let's just talk about that right now.
Yeah, just put it all out here.
We can talk about, we'll spoil all of season 3 now, too.
Totally,
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone. No, it's funny with the loose threads comment, too. It's like, I feel like a lot of it is important just to keep the realism, because real life isn't just tied up in a bow, like you're saying. But then it's also a great, thing for us to sort of leave those threads out there. And, we're always, like, we're really big in sort of like reading our forums and listening to fan feedback. And it's like sometimes you do get those like threads, like people are just like, Kenny's got to come back, and you're like, yeah, well,
it's just
we
Gavin.
talked about
It's
it,
Gavin saying it.
Yeah, exactly. It's
115 different accounts.
Yeah. So then you were talking about, everyone in the office has their ending, and this is what they say their ending is. I want to know Sean, and then I want to know Dennis, and I want to know Mitch. Like, what are your endings? Where does it end for your Clementine? Hashtag.
I am partial to the alone ending. I think there's something really just kind of beautiful about that image of Clementine just with a baby, just painting it up and walking
confidently
directly
striding into like a blurry mass.
Yeah, I mean, like, you guys did this another one, right? You do such a callback to the end of season 1 where she's sitting there shaking alone, like her eyes get all wide, and then you have pretty much that same moment of coming to the hill. You're like, no, a giant herd of walkers, and she walks out, you know what I mean? Baby all the way out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, God, it's interesting. Yeah, I like the Alone branch a lot as well, just for the starkness of it, and just the fact that it's such a kind of like 180 from what I think a lot of people expect, from the season. Like, where the game's all about meeting all these characters, and you form relationships with them. Some of them die, but then at the end, somehow you're moving on with some group. Like, there's always more survivors out there, and you feel like that you're just always going to come in contact with them. And so, yeah, that image of her walking off with the baby is pretty powerful. But I also am a sucker for the Wellington ending, just because I like emotional moments with Kenny.
Sure.
Yeah.
So now, what was your canonical ending?
I also ended alone.
Damn right. That's the real Clem, everybody. Done season 3.
But the difference is that you ended up alone completely different than I did, because the arc of how you get there is totally different, right? I mean, obviously, the Bonnie and Mike betrayal is, it always happens.
Well, we're going to get to those mother.
You better bring those motherfuckers back so we can burn them to the ground. But mine, I mean, the Jane-Kenny fight happens. Jane arrives and says, trust me, just roll with this. And I decided, like, I will totally abstain from whatever's going to happen. I'm going to trust you implicitly about whatever's going to go down. I never interacted with them during the fight. And I just let her die because of it. Because, her message, she wanted to communicate that message. And at that point, I never felt like Kenny needed to die. The Clementine that I had built was cold, and she was calculated, and she was kind of resentful of a lot of people. I was always just like, nah, you, Rebecca. You were awful to me, so you're dead to me forever. Mm-hmm. But even with Kenny, I just never felt like he deserved the bullet. So he came to the car and he's like, all right, Clem, let's go. It was like, there's no fucking way you're raising this baby. There's no way you're coming with me. You are a sociopath. But then he has that moment of redemption where he says he was glad to know you and he trusts you more than he trusts himself. And you get that at Wellington too when he offers to, take the kids and I'll go on my own way. And it's nice to get those moments, but you didn't get that.
No.
Kenny was just cold till the end for you.
Yeah, well, but I mean, I think I'm still processing all this. Again, I love Kenny, and I always will. But I think the best way to put it right is he's the dog I love, but had to put down. He's my old Yeller, right? I saw him, he was finally rabid in the end. He had helped me out to this point, but now it was just time, and he wanted it. He laid back.
There's a dog in episode 1 for a reason.
Oh, yeah. Don't even try to act like that. You're painting yourself into a corner with season 3. You're going to be like, oh, well, the dog will clearly be
foreshadowing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we call that.
But yeah, it was time to put Kenny down. Mm-hmm. And I miss him.
I think the most interesting parallel for me, aside from, there are a bunch of parallels in this season that I think are really interesting. You start out with pregnant Krista, and then there is no baby. And then there's the pregnant Rebecca, and you end up with the baby. And there are all these different, failed fathers, and, they just couldn't raise their children right. They couldn't be there, or they were killed, or whatever. And this thought is totally getting away from me. I can't remember where I was going
I hate when that happens. The parallels, things in the thing.
Yeah. Oh, it was the loneliness of Clem, right? To begin, the first episode when you guys launched the first episode and I wrote my review, my biggest criticism was this feels like a Clementine story, which is great because it's an amazing Clementine story, but I don't know where it's going, and I don't know where the other people fit in. I don't know where it's going, and in hindsight, it's not as meandering as I thought because you get to the end and it has the same sense of this has always been about Clem, and the people around her are just there. Mm-hmm. And in the end, if you end up, whether or not you end up alone, it's still, her decisions led there, and her relationships with these people that she had to cut loose or couldn't save or whatever. Inevitably, she's going to end up alone. Even if you take Kenny with you or you go off with Kenny, there's still a sense of loneliness to that.
Mm-hmm.
So lonely.
The game's really sad.
Yeah, no. It's super sad, and this definitely had some of the saddest moments. I think Luke's passing, that caught me off guard. I thought he was gonna fall in and we'd get him out, and then I'm like, well, and then
what did you do, by the way?
What I did is exactly what Luke asked me to do, and then you got dumb Bonnie over here f***ing it up for everybody. But what I did, is Luke's like, no, just cover me, and I'm like, totally. If you die this way. You went out with me doing what you asked me to do or whatever, and then he gets underneath and he's on I'm banging on it. I wouldn't leave him then, but I was so mad at the end when he's dead. Okay, I go outside and Bonnie's totally I have nothing to say to you. Yada yada yada. I was like, I got something to say to you because you were there when Luke said, "Don't come out here." You came out here. You broke the ice. This is on you, not on me. I don't know how you can turn that around on me. You know what I mean? And I already wasn't a Bonnie fan. If you remember back from Playing Dead's previous, when we were talking about the fact that she totally tricked us and screwed us over, when I got to Carver's camp, I was not on board with her. I did not forgive her. I was like, I'm gonna go. When she gives you the option, to leave or whatever. I never came fully around on her. I was getting there a little bit, but then she shows her true colors.
Yep, made that choice. When I was curious, when you were trying to save Luke, did you just keep hitting the ice and fall in?
Yeah.
Or did you walk away? Oh,
no, I kept hitting until I fell in. Yeah.
When I replayed, I did that. I was like, I'm gonna get it. This is the time. This is how I save him. I just bust it open, get in, get out.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. I thought there'd be a way to save him there. I didn't think that's how he would go out.
Well, because it's one of those deaths where, you never get this in games, especially, but death in general it always feels kind of well, that can't be how that happened. Mm-hmm. You get in the water and he's sinking down. You're like, no, he's gonna be fine.
Yeah. I was like, I'll grab him and swim up, and then we'll give him mouth to mouth.
Yeah, it's kind of a surreal thing when he falls through, and you're like, oh, this choice, I'll do this, and I'll save him, and everything will be great, and nothing you can do. It's the most helpless feeling that this dude who's, he drowns because he's in too long, or his leg is shot and he can't do anything, or he gets grabbed and he's pulled down. There's just it's a no-win scenario.
Yeah. And you said for, the entire run of season 2, right, he was alpha male. He was the guy who could get it done no matter what you needed. He was going to be your man, you know what I mean?
And he was the glue that kind of kept his family together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And with them kind of scattered to the wind, you have the strong leader type who is crippled, he's literally crippled, and he can't do anything. He's just helpless in the middle of the river, just waiting to die.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the things I like about that death a lot is that he seems like the guy we're building to just be the, at the end you're
Yeah.
like Luke and Clementine off into the sunset. Like a lot of people were thinking that. And so it's fun then to take that and, God, what was that movie? Deep Blue Sea with Samuel L. Jackson giving the speech and the shark comes in. You're like, I didn't see that coming from Samuel L. Jackson. Not to say this is that.
Yeah. By the way, everybody.
Sorry, we didn't give you enough time on that one. And then click off. I'm sure it's all on your Netflix queues.
When are we doing the Deep Blue Sea Spoilercast?
Yeah, soon. We'll get right on that. Don't worry. We're trying to get Samuel in for it.
Oh, good.
That's a big part of it for us. But yeah, so I never had a strong feeling about Mike. Bonnie was, all right, whatever, I'm not sold on you. Mike, whatever, you're a vanilla character. But then this episode starts off real quick when Arvo shows up, and then camps start getting formed. And this is definitely the most savage Mike Clementine ever was, but just right with Kenny. Kill this motherfucker. Why are we saying, you know what I mean? We cannot help it. Because, like, I hold the grudge against him because in my playthrough, I didn't take his medical supplies. I stopped Jane from killing him. I let him go. So at the end of the game, of episode 4, right, I was personally offended when I'm like, I didn't steal from you. I tried to stop it. And he's like, yeah, where is Jane? I'm like, not the point. Not the point of what I'm trying to make here. The point is back. And he gave you no leeway. You know what I mean? Yeah. So as soon as that happened, it was like, now it's over. I want to kill you. And then we're like, oh, we'll go to his cabin. I'm like, no, kill him. You know what I mean? Every time that fucked up.
Wow.
And Mike would turn to you and his eyes would get all big. Like, what are you saying? But you didn't do that.
No, I was sympathetic with, like, Mike and I were both on the same page. Like, yo, man, you need to back off. Like, he gets it. You can stop yelling at him. It's going to be fine. All of that stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, I think the most heartbreaking moment, aside from obviously like deaths that hit huge, was when I went to talk to Arvo, and you have that exchange, or you can have Mike go over, and Mike, tries to make him feel better, and you just hear him in the distance screaming like, "No, go away, leave me alone," and that audio is just like crushing, like hearing him in the distance just rejecting Mike, and then seeing him like try to appeal to him more and more, and Arvo gives him like the pity, thank you. And I was always on board. I'm like, yes, we need to help this poor kid. Like, yeah, he screwed us, or he's part of these people who screwed us. But again, like Kenny, I never felt like he deserved to die for it.
Well, you never really know whether, like, how much he had to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, he might just be there, and these guys are aggressive, and he's like, oh no, what do we do?
Don't give him any of these silver linings. The problem was he could have easily told his friends, whoa, guns down, you're right.
And eventually we realized, yeah, he needed to die.
Yeah, exactly. In the end, Kenny and I turned out to be right on this one. You know what I mean? And he gets with Bonnie, who's already a jerk, and then Mike, who I didn't have any feelings for except was a wuss.
But I was starting to side with him even at the cabin, when Kenny tells him, like, you got something to say, and he just tells him, F you. I was like, yes, finally, like, stand up for yourself. Like, do something.
Yeah.
Stop putting up with Kenny's shit. Just live your life. And it, like, nope, never mind.
Yeah.
I'm back on board with Psychopath Kenny.
Yeah.
So it's like a mixed emotions back and forth.
That was the
with that
thing
character.
when Clem wakes up and goes out there, and those three at the truck. I was like, oh my god, like because it was like one of those like I'm questioning myself.
Yeah.
I realize I'm siding with the psychopath man right now. That everybody else is like, don't talk to him, and I'm like, I love Kenny. I'm with Kenny, kind of. He's starting to scare me, Kenny. But then when it was like, oh man, we were right. This guy sucks. I was so ready to shoot him, and you guys refused to give me that option.
Did you know it was them, by the way, when you went outside?
I
you know
the
who it
silhouettes.
was? I mean, yeah.
The silhouettes I knew Arvo's and I knew Mike's, and then Bonnie obviously comes
See,
out.
I didn't see Mike. I saw Arvo, and I was like, who's that other? Who is that person?
Yeah.
Okay. Who is screwing us right
I was
now?
gonna say, like, so for me, it's just like, aha, I knew it all along. What was it like for you?
Oh, I had that like, Mike, how dare you? And then Bonnie comes out, and I'm like, again?
Yeah, I know, right? How many times are you gonna screw us over?
Yeah. That was the moment, like, if there was the option, like, pick one, it was Bonnie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should just shoot anybody, it was Bonnie.
Well, like, when you guys do
You're the guy with the gun.
whenever an action scene is about to start up, I'm always like feathering the stick, ready to move it and start smashing R1. I was so ready for it, and then it pops up and it's like, just yell. I was like, oh god damn. Jane!
So you yelled.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's one where I read through them, but that was the one I went. I don't even. What were the other options? I forget.
God.
You could
actually
try to
remember.
talk him down. You could say, take me with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's, I mean, you say, take me with you, and Mike is like, yeah, was it fine? Yeah, just give me the gun, and you have that exchange. What happens if you yell?
If you yell, you're like,
just get
Kenny,
Arvo
Jane, and Arvo
They
shoots
immediately
you.
shoot you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was like, I hate you so much, Arvo. God, I've hated you, Arvo. I hope there's no 400 days. It's just a hunt for Arvo. Parallel universe where it all falls apart. We get to go after him. Lee rises from the grave to come. Speaking of Greg Way, that was awesome. That was totally unexpected to be put back in the RV and be like, whoa.
And it didn't feel cheap in the same way. And it, like, the fake out that you make, it makes you think it's a dream sequence or like that the whole season 2 is a dream sequence. You're like, Lee, it was all a dream. And it's like, no, it's just she's tired and confused and building up to the conversation that they had back then.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
God. What's weird is it was. It might sound weird, but like when I was playing through like right before we were shipping, like I'm good at kind of like just expelling my brain of everything I know about a game and just going through it fresh. And so when I got to that part and like we were in the RV, like I actually had like 5 seconds where I was like, oh my God, it's all been a dream. I actually bought it myself and it was weird.
Yeah, no, that was like that was a weird thing. There was like that 5 seconds you wrestle with of like, holy shit. Was everything, and if that, wait, no, that's impossible. They would never do that, you know what I mean? You go, but yeah, like, and it speaks back to me, I've talked about it on the show before, right? Like, playing through season 1, I always said, I'm Lee, and I love Clementine, I'm going to take care of Clementine. And then it wasn't until we got to season 2, episode 1, where when she's sitting there eating her porridge, talking to Luke, and I started getting tear up talking about Lee and realized I loved Lee. I loved Lee, you know, I was building this character. And so, season 2, again, I've been super hard, you know what I mean? I'm just like, well, I'm Clementine, this is what it's all about, you know, I hate these people I'm with, and they're all going to get me eventually. This girl's a mini Ben, I don't like it one bit. And then, when we got to that point, as soon as we started talking, I welled up with tears. And then when we got out of it, even like putting down Kenny, it was just like, I'm sorry, man, you know, it wasn't like that same like gut-wrenching, like double over, cry the next day thing.
It also makes you wonder, when you think back on the conversations that Clem had with Lee about trust, you have to wonder if he was talking about Kenny. Like, did Lee see that in Kenny then? Now I kind of want to replay season 1 and see, like, what was the interaction? Like, especially if you were negative toward Kenny as Lee. If you were always projecting his thoughts, like, I really want to explore that relationship again.
Well, I do think, like, it was always there, you know, like, lurking in Kenny. Kenny always sort of seemed like he had that
You see it
wild
especially in the
streak
fridge.
that, and then, you know, it just, in this episode specifically, you just sort of see it just boil over.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's the tipping point part. You finally see it,
Yeah. But
So what was the toughest decision then? I mean, I know you guys made them. You created the decisions, but I mean, when you look back, what do you think the toughest one of this episode and then all of the season maybe?
are you talking about the toughest decision to make as a player?
Yeah. The ones you laid out, you think?
I don't know. I think, I mean, I hope that it's the Kenny with the knife just bearing down. I don't know if that's actually the case, but, you know, after you've had 2 seasons worth of, you know, Kenny, and sort of seen firsthand all that loss that he's gone through.
Yeah.
My hope was that you would sympathize in the moment with him enough that, you know, that decision was difficult, because you don't really know Jane great, you know. Like, she's kind of purposely kept you at arm's length, you know. And I think, you know, for me, that was a big one.
For me, I mean, the reason I think I was so ride or die with Kenny, right, is the fact that, for all intents and purposes, he's family. You know what I mean? He's the guy I've known the longest, I've been through the most with, I'm excited to see again, especially coming from the fact that there's these new people I just met and they were asses to me. You know what I mean? They were total jerks and locked me in the shed, and I'm not down with any of them. So to see that from their face, it was immediately like, all right, great, and where is the option to run away with Kenny? You know what I mean? But like, that never happens until we get to this point here and everything's already gone to hell. You know what I mean? So you give me again what I want, but then by the time we get it, it's like everything's been so tainted and changed. It's like, we need to put you down, old Yeller. I'm sorry.
Yep. No, totally. Well, it's funny, the same thing for me too. In that we never thought, or it was really hard for us to believe that people would either leave or shoot Kenny.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we all love him. So
yeah.
And I think so many fans do. And so it was weird, you know, constructing that decision was definitely like, man, if we could actually get people to a place where they would either walk away or shoot this guy, like, that's saying something. Yeah. And so to us, it was just like, that was the funnest challenge of this whole episode, was just trying to sort of tool everything to get people to a place where that was possible. Because I think there was a lot of times where, in early revisions, where we weren't getting it right. And it was just clear that, you know, no one was going to do that. Everyone was just going to say, like, oh, I'll stay with you, Kenny, till, you know, the end of time. Not good. Not as good to have everyone doing that.
That beard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you start to see a lot of that, you know, upon reflection after seeing the entirety of the season. You look back and you see the seeds of Kenny starting to fall apart. Even in, you know, the first time you see him, the first time you meet him, the way he treats other people, and the way that gets exacerbated over time, you see him just starting to come unhinged. And it's, in hindsight, it's like, wow, it's obviously where he was headed, was this like complete path of destruction.
Poor Kenny. You guys really screwed him up.
Yeah,
Could've
that's
just
true.
went-
I feel really bad about it, actually, just having worked on it. That poor son of a bitch. You know?
Yeah.
It's just,
Well, it's fun to get people then to think back, when you finally see Kenny come unhinged and do some horrible shit. Then you're like, okay, well, what did Carver go through, to get to that point as
Right,
well? And
yeah.
it sort of makes you see him in a bit of a different light, where you're
Right.
like, well, I was like best friends with this guy, and then he just turned this way. Like,
Yeah.
maybe that guy was a normal person too.
And you say all that, but that is totally then in your head, or my head, right, as I'm playing Clementine and I'm making those decisions as her. It's like, what is the difference? You know what I mean? And this is something that the comics have dealt with too. Rick asks those questions of himself, right? And like, where is the line and when do you cross it? And, at some point I think the bad guys just have to die. And then sometimes the really good guys who are going bad have to get out.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very sad. Mitch,
Sad now. Yeah, buddy. What's
anything
up?
we didn't cover?
Man, I don't know.
What did you think of season 2, Mitch, overall?
I loved it.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. We were talking about this earlier over lunch, Marty and I, and we were trying to figure out, like, what do we like more, season 1 or season 2? And they're so different.
Right.
They just try to accomplish different things. And it's hard to compare them because the stories they tell are different, the interactions you have with people are different. And I don't know, the design and pacing of each episode and the total arc is completely different. And they both are great in their own ways.
Yeah.
I love Walking Dead. Keep making that.
Yeah, you should probably keep
Some
some
of
of
that.
I think other people like it too. Which one did you like better, season 1 or season 2, guys?
Choose your words carefully, sir.
I like Wolf Among Us.
Yeah, I heard that big B. No, I mean, I was in the comments today. We put up the spoiler alert. This isn't live as we film it. Today we put up the seasons or episodes 1 through 4 in 60 seconds feature, and so I was in the comments talking to people, and it's interesting because I think I get so granular with it doing this show. First off, so I'm doing multiple shows about one episode, right? But then to sit back and talk about it as a season, that's what the discussion was so far. And people were saying pretty much the same thing, that I like season 1 better, I think, but season 2 is just, that was the whole thing, is they're different, right? Like I always talk about it that I felt like season 1's objective was so much more clear. I'm Lee, I have this kid. This is how you guys pitched it when you met us, right? Of like, you protect her at all costs. Got it. We're going to get to Savannah, we're going to see what's up, and then it's over, right? Like, you felt the arc, and that made sense. Whereas this one, episode 1 ended, and Mitch and I are like, that was... What the hell? Like, that was great, but like, what am I doing? And then I remember, Carver. Carver's the bad guy, and he'll be along the dead. All right, well, you have 2 episodes left. What the hell is, what I mean? And it just becomes that this is a story of survival. This is a story of, keeping her alive and just being that character, which is completely
not
different.
dying.
Yeah.
Well, and that's I agree and think that one of the interesting things that I do like about season 2 in a different light than season 1 is that in season 1 you definitely have that clear goal. It's like, well, it's oh man, the world just went to hell. What do we do? Let's get a boat and go out on the ocean because that seems like a place where we can get away from these things.
Yeah.
Let's go find Clementine's parents. Like it's all these sort of immediate goals.
Yeah.
Season 2 ends up just being like, how do we just not die today?
Yeah.
Are we, even the discussions in episode 5, there's a lot of like, I think we should go north.
Yep.
I think we should
No,
go
we
south.
need to go
Like,
back.
It's just,
We need to-
everything's
Yeah.
breaking
Yeah,
down.
we need to go neither direction.
They've tried all their first and second, third options, and
Yeah.
now it's just sort of everyone. Every time they meet new people, other people have new ideas, and there's this Wellington place. It's just a
It's very much like
crazy
a grasping
mishmash.
at straws. Like
sure,
everybody's just
yeah.
grasping at straws
Sure.
all the time.
Yep.
It's the same track, I think, the comic is on, and a lot of times a zombie movie will try to do, right? A zombie movie always deals with, it starts and then what happens, great. You know what I mean? And you're over in 2 hours, whereas this one, we're way past the 2 hour beginning mark.
Right.
This is life now, and so now it just keeps on going, and how does that mature out and go from
Yeah, I mean, when you guys look ahead at season 3, I mean, negating, who it's about and where you're going or whatever. How do you continue to make something like this that's interesting without just kind of retreading the old themes?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you got to figure out, like, what are you aiming at, right? And if we're just aiming at the same target, that's not interesting. So we're always going to, I think, try and, like, look at whatever makes sense. I mean, we talk about it and come up with something that's good and do that, rather than try and redo what we've done.
Yeah, I know that was definitely a goal of season 2 was to not, like specifically all along the way, like not hit those moments that we did in season 1. And I think there's a lot of stuff that's been talked about, in season 3 that's really cool and really different in a whole new way. And
Underwater.
Underwater. Yeah, it's a Bioshock.
Yeah, it's just like,
Rapture also got infected.
Man, just seeing Clementine's model, just like in one of the windows of Rapture, and just teaser trailer. But yeah, I think with season 3, it's definitely a new angle, I think, as well.
Yeah.
And obviously you have to wait and see. But
Yeah, and I mean, this season in particular has been like, we heard when we found out you guys were doing a Game of Thrones game, everyone was like, cool, they do bleak stuff really well, and I think this season really, really underscores that. These are the kind of characters that you see a lot in Game of Thrones. You see people like Kenny who are awful, but still kind of redeemable or still likable in a certain way, despicable, but you still are like, oh,
He gets
I'll
things
support
done.
that guy, that kind of thing. So that's really reassuring.
Good.
Kenny commits. All right, let's just put it out there. All right,
Man knows what he wants.
He picks it. This is what I want, and he goes for it. Everybody else, where do I want to go? I don't know. Jane, I'm going to leave the group. I'm back to the group. Make up your mind, Jane.
What did you think about that, by the way? Were you surprised when she came back? Were you expecting it? I mean, was it like a...
No, it seems like an inevitability, right? I mean, she leaves so suddenly at the end of episode 4, and that was an issue I raised in my review. I was like, oh, she just left. And it seemed very abrupt. And to me, it was always like, well, she's going to come back. She's going to presumably, have some impact in episode 5. Didn't see degree
that
of
level.
it coming to be. So I was glad to see her because I thought she was interesting, and then having her leave seemed like, oh, well, that seems like a waste. She has to come back.
Yeah. Well, you see now, it's that thing of like, you guys like to do things that look like something you already did before. So I remember when Molly left, and I was like, can't wait to see Molly in the final episode. And no sign of Molly ever again. I was like, all right. So then this time around, I was like, I don't know how you're going to do this.
No, I was just going to draw that Molly parallel.
Yeah.
It's just like exactly, it's such the same setup, and then
Right.
Yep, and then but Jan actually comes back. So.
Yeah. So here's something you reminded me. Thank you for doing this. I understand. I don't know if everybody's caught it. I like The Walking Dead as a franchise quite a bit. I'm a big fan of all parts of it, minus Survival Instincts. My question then, they announced this new first-person shooter one, Starbreeze, all this stuff happening. You know what I mean? You've heard of this. You've heard of this announcement. They made a big deal in the trailer. Okay, yeah, like it's Outbreak from Ground Zero, co-op play in DC. Jane had a very interesting storyline in her when she's talking around the campfire, I think it was. Maybe it was somewhere else, maybe at the house. But she's talking about, when it started, I was in D.C. with this group of people, and the guy got caught under the car, and we sent in people trying to get him, and after 3 people died, we finally got him out, and he was bitten, and it was totally... Sure. Is there a tie in there at all? Is that a real thing, or am I just being a nerd?
I have no idea.
You guys suck.
People don't know. You just happen to mention an East Coast city.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, it's got to be the same thing if it's in D.C. It's tying up all the loose ends.
There's a little bit of stuff in D.C. in the comic book. I mean, I can't remember the scientist's name, but that's where he was. Eugene was coming from or going to.
He was going there.
Yeah, the camp was by there, too. The one with, I don't remember his name, but they had power and showing Hunger Sword on the wall. And,
yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Governors?
No, it was, there was like, I don't know, they became cops there for a while, and
oh, wow.
they were like rebuilding the wall and stuff.
Yeah, Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
That was right near
Somebody
DC.
called me out on it, I think a couple of weeks ago on Playing Dead. I was like, oh, yeah, and then Eugene never made it to DC, and they're like, yeah, he did. I was like, oh, right, I haven't read that story arc in a long time. A lot of stuff happening in the Walking Dead universe. Yeah, well, there's just too much stuff now, which I love.
A lot.
Yeah.
Don't stop making it.
Yeah, I was going to say, go home, make season 3, don't listen to us. Guys, season 2 is awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Cool. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's still more to come from Playing Dead. Not in this episode. This episode's ending. But there'll be more content on IGN about The Walking Dead. And you can bet your bottom dollar that as soon as that season 3 details are released, we'll be talking about them. Mitch and I. Probably not these two. So stay here
They'll be busy
for Walking Dead stuff.